freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 477 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearmsauctions.com, where you set the price on guns, ammo, and accessories. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is burning bridges, and our guest is John Gilstrap. John is a New York Times best-selling author of award-winning action novels, including the Jonathan Grave and Victoria Emerson thrillers. A master of action-driven suspense, former firefighter and EMT, and a nationally recognized weaponry and explosives safety expert. John is set to release his latest work titled Burned Bridges.
Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
I am so excited to dive into this. And I love that as Danny was reading you in here, you are not just an explosives expert, but an explosive safety expert, because I mean, that is key, right?
Well, it is. And the difference is I have all 10 fingers. So that's what makes you an expert in that line of work.
I was just going to say, if you want to keep all your digits, maybe safety is important.
So how did you become an explosive expert, being with fire department, or was it before, or what?
When I was in the fire department, it was a volunteer fire department, but we ran 14,000 calls a year. So
Wow.
it was a very, very, very busy volunteer fire department in Prince William County, Virginia. And I was in graduate school to become a safety engineer. And I met a guy who hired me to work at an explosives manufacturing plant, and I became the safety manager of an explosives manufacturing plant. And this was during the Reagan years, where there's a lot to manufacture. We were did the MLRS system, Stinger, Tomahawk, Navy Standard missile, just all kinds. We were second on space shuttle. So we did a lot of work.
Wow.
Thousands of pounds.
And then
millions of pounds.
Sticking with that whole idea of safety, one of the main characters in your new book that, by the way, we are teasing it here on the show. We are sitting in the studio on Tuesday, May 6th. This should air on the 9th. You can pre-order this book, but it's not actually going to get to your hands until when?
May 27th is when it drops.
All right. So this is,
but pre-orders counts. I encourage pre-orders. Don't you really want to be in the front of the line when the book comes out, everybody?
Yeah.
Heck yes. And so I do want to talk a little bit about the story itself, but on that idea of safety, one of your characters teaches her children. So this is a mom, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lady. And, I am the state director for Women for Gun Rights, so I'm very involved in that particular realm of firearms ownership and protecting our rights, and safety is key. So your character teaches her children about safe gun handling at an early age. I so appreciate that. What do you have to say about, it should not be a controversial issue, but it seems to be, teaching children how to be safe around guns?
Well, not only does she teach them to be safe, she teaches them how to shoot and how to shoot properly. This becomes a plot point, actually, where Irene Rivers was the FBI director in the Jonathan Grave series, and she left that job to come to West Virginia to kind of escape the Washington environment. And it turns out I write thrillers, so life in West Virginia gets really stressful for her too. But she trained her kids to protect themselves and because they were around firearms, obviously you learn how to safely handle firearms. But there comes a point that you might have to use firearms. And if you're going to have to use firearms, how do you do it? So she trains them to draw and fire, so that you get that muscle memory to shoot triple taps is what she trains the kids to do, so that they live on 142 acres out in West Virginia, and they have their own little shooting range. So her nephew, it's essentially her son. She's custodian. They train on how to properly handle firearms. Now in West Virginia, actually, on the property, he's almost 13. He wanders with his dog a lot around, and we do have coyotes, and we have snakes, and we have things that you don't want to run into. So while he's on the property, he is armed for that reason. So that's, if you're going to have guns, you should be able to handle them safely. We've always had guns. When I was a kid, we just knew. My dad didn't lock up the guns. We just knew not to handle them. And we never let friends handle them.
Whoa, John, Cheryl. No, I thought gun safety was keeping kids, no guns allowed, no guns around.
Well, that's some people's idea of it.
And I'm just kidding you,
but that's not how any of the three of us were raised. Exactly like you say, John. My dad had guns. You'd open a kitchen drawer and it's like, oh, well, there's that gun. Okay. But we knew what it was for and what it was not for. And it was no more shocking than opening a drawer and finding a bunch of knives, right? Because we teach children from the earliest ages how to safely interact with them and at what age it's appropriate. And I love that. And here in Arizona, we've got a lot of rural areas and a lot of kids that grow up on ranches and, acreage. And if we're not empowering them to protect themselves from predators, whether they've got 4 legs, 2 legs, or no legs, snakes, right? Then we're not really doing them the best service. So I really appreciate that.
Yes, me too.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned knives. I had never thought of this analogy before, but you teach your kids you don't pick up the knife by the edge, right? Maybe you don't have to teach them that because
just one time.
Yeah. And maybe that's not a great analogy because you don't get one time with a gun, right? So you do have, but it's just a tool. It's just a thing. And I don't know why. I deeply don't understand why it is such a big deal. And it is a big deal for people who don't understand. There was a time that I actually, for one of my books, Scorpion Strike was the name of the book. We had this great idea. The cover, it's not one of the ones behind me here, but the cover had a lot of bullet holes in it, like, graphics. And we got this idea of, for the big accounts, we'd take some of the books out to the range and I would shoot them. And then we would give shot up books to some of the big accounts. Kind of a cool idea, right? Yeah. So we brought some of the people from New York, the publicity folks, I think 2 of them, came or took them out to the range and we shot. So it started with them. They're, young folks, 20s, I guess. One of them was extremely nervous, just kind of freaked out about being around guns. And by the time we were done, she was a beast. I mean, she was really having a good time shooting things up. It's just not a mythical, scary thing. It's just a tool.
Well, John, I want to hear more about your books, but I want to, my analogy of gun safety is this. So if you don't have a swimming pool, do you need to teach your kid how to swim? Yes. Well, what about when the kid goes to the next door neighbor that has a pool? Right. So we should all be, I think everybody it should be mandatory that you at least learn how guns work and what to do if you see a gun, whether it's run away and tell an adult or how to handle it safely and make it safe, because they're there. And we, just like walking in the desert, we know there's rattlesnakes. Be aware and just train how to walk around snakes, whatever. Absolutely. But I do think that it's really good. Anytime we can add gun safety in your books or in conversation, it's very important.
And I will say that in all of my books, well, there's 30 of them, so all is probably a bit much. But there's often an occasion where somebody who's not part of the team, whatever the team is, the hero and his friends, will be given, sort of drafted in to become part of the team. And there will be a section of gun safety, like
Nice.
this is the safety. Don't put the booger hook on the bang switch kind of thing, and I think that's kind of an important part as an author. That's my responsibility, just to kind of insert that where necessary.
Right.
No, that's so important, and I like that you're showing that. And this really is a bridge to my next question. That it almost is a statement. There's so much in movies and other books of wrong gun handling, or just gratuitousness of, guns can shoot 8 gajillion bullets without ever having to be reloaded, and people are flagging each other with their gun, pointing them at people with their finger on the trigger incorrectly. Just all the wrong things with nobody there to show that is wrong. And then you've taken the time to do it better in your books. Can you kind of speak into that topic?
Well, if you're gonna, my good guys are good at what they do. So it's kind of, if they shoot and miss, there's a problem. If you have to spray and slay, right, you're not a professional at what you do. Only the first shot is accurate anyway. So as being professionals, Jonathan Grave, the Grave series, he's a freelance hostage rescue guy. He's a former Delta operator. And with Irene Rivers being former law enforcement, going to guns is the last thing. It's not the first thing that they do. And it has a consequence, and you fire the fewest possible rounds and for the highest possible impact, right? And so that's the way I do it in my books. I don't believe in the whole, John Wick is fun, right? It's just, it's choreography and but that's not what I do. It's mine is more on the realistic side.
Awesome.
Well, I appreciate that because, as a 2A advocate, it's where I spend most of my time speaking around the country and serving on boards of organizations that help protect our rights. It doesn't help what I do, and it doesn't serve us ultimately for that romanticization of guns and making them sort of like these mythical creatures. Like they're not even, an inanimate object sometimes by the time these authors and movie people get done with them. So no wonder people who aren't familiar with them could be, a little bit wary about, is it going to actually jump up off the table, walk around my house and do me harm?
And there's people that believe that. There are people that are core anti-gun. They think that these guns just get up and move on their own.
Well, and I think the flip side of that happens in a lot of, I won't name the show because I don't think that's appropriate, but I was watching a show last night. It was actually a recorded show because you can't even run that back. Where, pointing a gun in real life is a violent act, right? So it's not, and that's something that particularly in television and movies that they get wrong. You just don't willy-nilly point guns at people. And that's just not the way things should be done in real life. And I don't know that it is done. It's certainly not done in my life. Where I live out in the country among real people. Perhaps it is done in other parts of the country. But if it is, if you live in a place where you got a lot of people, like, I don't know, inner cities or where you got a lot of people together and a lot of people are armed, don't you want to be armed too? So in order to protect yourself from those people. I don't understand the argument. In fact, I had this discussion with a family member just recently that I am okay. Spoiler. I I live in West Virginia. It's a constitutional carry state, and I think that's wonderful. So a friend of mine said, or a family member said, "Why do you carry a firearm?" And I said, "Why wouldn't I?
Mhm.
I just can't imagine the circumstance where I would ever say, darn, I wish I wasn't armed today."
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
No, it's a tool of self-protection, a tool of hunting, a tool of, outdoor sports. And, if you look at the protection part of it, does anybody ever say, why the heck do you have like a fire extinguisher in your kitchen? Like, what is that
Or a
about?
seatbelt on your car.
Yeah. Or, why
Mhm.
are you wearing the seatbelt thing? It's
Can't you
like,
drive good? Can't you drive?
exactly.
Are you a crazy driver or what?
It's true, but I like your answer. Why wouldn't I? Right? It's just as simple as it gets.
Or
Um,
why do you need to wear it to Walmart? Well, if I thought I needed it in Walmart, I wouldn't go to Walmart that day,
Yeah.
right? So it's
yeah, exactly. It's just a in case, rather have it and not need it, right? Than need it and not have it. One more question on the safety issue. You have been a safety consultant in our nation's capital. Now
Mhm.
that has to be an interesting you know, background, career, set of unique instances. What can you share with us about your time doing that particular job?
Okay. This would have been probably call it 1990, give or take a couple of years. And there was a guy who was older than Moses who was working at this explosives plant where I worked. And he had worked there forever. And he was finally retiring. He just drove a truck, right? Kind of blind actually, and so he just drove a truck around the plant and dropped off office supplies, that kind of stuff. And as part of his exit briefing, which was ceremonial because Wendell had been there forever, and there are a lot of people standing around. And one of the questions you have to ask in a Department of Defense facility, I mean, we were a civilian, but Department of Defense contracts, one of the questions you have to ask is, are there any safety or environmental issues that we should be concerned about? And, and Wendell said, well, I've always been concerned about that nerve gas that we buried out back in
Oh my
1959.
gosh.
By
Oh
the
my.
way, by the way,
Oh no.
gas.
Huh. My life got very interesting after that.
Oh
So
my
what
goodness.
became of that?
Yeah, we found it.
Oh, was it still in the container?
No. It had leaked out. So created a few problems.
I bet it
Um,
would.
Wow.
and then we found that it was buried among a lot of others. So
Oh
That's
wow.
what they used to do. Just bury it, or
until
throw it in the ocean.
1976, I was perfectly legal to pour whatever you wanted out onto the ground. Well, not
Bury.
nerve agent. That was different. But
Yeah.
that was
Okay.
that was my biggest surprise.
Well, and when we see, some of the crazy regulations that come down the pike, sometimes it feels like, okay, come on, can we just calm down a minute? But maybe they were born out of things like this. So
Mhm.
we can we can appreciate that a little bit more. That's hilarious. And a
And
little
that
bit
chunk of
terrifying.
land, just so you know, is now being developed.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, we've got some things in Arizona that I don't know about nerve gas particularly, but things that like you and we probably would never be able to afford the ground cleanup, right? After
mhm.
we took the soil sample and sent it in. But somehow these government buildings, it's like, no, it's fine, right? Because we're the government, so we'll just throw some concrete on top of that. We're good. And it's like, okay, all right, you do
Well,
you.
there might be a couple agencies would be good to go in that area that you need to develop there, John.
Hey
No,
now,
I just said a couple. I didn't say
hey.
all. Just
I'll
a
leave that
couple.
to y'all.
All right, moving right along. So your characters, right? It's not like our firearms are fashion statements necessarily or that sort of thing, but guns are very personal, right? The gun that
Mhm.
fits my hand, my uses, my life may be very different from the next woman who maybe has a similar lifestyle and build from me. It's like buying a pair of shoes. And so when you're building your character profile, do you try to match a particular kind of gun with them?
Well, Jonathan Grave
Mhm.
carries a Colt 1911. Uh, he just it started that way, and that's what he always carries. Frankly, if I were to do it over again, that first book came out in 2009. It's kind of part of his character.
Mhm.
If I were to choose it over again, I might choose a different platform for him, but that's who he is. Other characters will, it depends on what they're wearing. Sort of like
Mhm.
me, it
Mhm.
depends on what different guns for different outfits. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Different
not as a
moods,
fashion
too.
statement, but as a concealment issue.
Yeah.
Mhm.
None
Yeah.
of them believe. None of my characters, unless they're going tactical, right? But
Mhm.
every day, everything's concealed.
Very good. Yeah. Here in Arizona, we have constitutional carry. And so, just like where you are, you're free to open or conceal carry. Personally, I always conceal carry, and I say concealed is concealed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of the conversation. Every once in a while you'll have somebody, that's maybe not super familiar with guns, and then they find out that, I do what I do, and they'll ask, are you carrying right now? They start scanning my body, and it's like, maybe, because concealed is concealed, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. So, pairing your characters with their weapons, do they, is it because of, you said about concealment, but also like caliber matters, right? Like if they're in an open area, like you said, you've got a lot of acreage around you. Well, now you've got to consider distance. So maybe, you've got to deal with an AR-15 platform rather than a pistol platform. How deeply do you go into those kinds of things?
Well, actually, I don't go deeply like Stephen Hunter deeply,
Hmm.
like in his books. But it's when Jonathan Grave, as an example, goes tactical, he's got their H&K guys. So he will have an M27, which is actually HK416 with the Marine Corps modifications to it. And then he'll have uh, an MP7, which is a little 4.6 millimeter nasty little mini rifle, mini MP, I guess, machine pistol. But it's way hotter and faster than the MP5. And then he'll carry his pistol, the uh, Colt. So those are his three weapons. Boxers, his uh, almost 7 foot tall compatriot, he'll carry the H&K 417, which is 7.62, and then his sidearm is also a 45.
So
So
tell
that's
us
just what
about,
they carry into a tactical situation.
okay. So what about burning bridges? Can you give us a little story on that?
Sure, burning bridges is Irene Rivers has taken her family away from Washington within the Jonathan Grave world, and this is kind of a continuation of it, but it's the beginning of a new series. She brought down the presidential administration. Tony Darman has been president in those books since 2009, and when she brought him down, she kind of torched her career. So she's moved to West Virginia to escape all of that, and she moved to family property. And in the first chapter, we find that out in this part of West Virginia, Eastern Panhandle, which is where she lives, there are a lot of caves, limestone outcroppings and caves. And her nephew, while he's out patrolling in his four-wheeler, finds a body stuffed in one of the caves. Actually, his dog finds it. Stuffed in a cave among creepers and that sort of thing. And that starts a series of events that uncover small town corruption and secrets that she gets involved with, and that ultimately brings a lot of violence to her and her family that 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 she needs to protect against, and that pits her as, she's just trying to be a private citizen, but she's also a famous private citizen because of what she's done. It pits her against sort of the established old families of this fictional part of West Virginia.
Awesome.
Very cool.
It's a pretty cool book. I got to tell you, I'm very proud of this book. It's a lot of fun, and it's a different kind of book that I've written before. I mean, it's very explosive at the end, literally and figuratively, but it's just a lot of fun.
Well, I'm excited about it.
Yeah. So if somebody wanted to order the book right now, how would they do that?
Any bookstore near you, go ahead and call them up and say you want to order it. You can go to Amazon, any of the online bookstores would work as well.
That is fantastic. I'm excited about this one. And, again, I feel like people who care about this world and our rights, we should support people who are putting work out there that doesn't make our job harder. Right? That supports what we do in the way that you write about the tools themselves and the people who use the tools. And so I'm just on so many layers. I'm excited about this. I'm curious though, do you ever have, after this many books and such a long career, do you have some of these firearms brands reach out to you and be like, listen, we've got this cool new gun coming out and it would be perfect for your character? Like, do you ever have that kind of thing happen?
I have, not to that level. I've gotten good deals on some new firearms. How's that?
Nice.
Awesome.
I like it. That's fantastic. Oh my goodness.
Well, if you're familiar with them and how they work and what they're capable of doing, then you could use that. You could use that in one of your novels, right?
Well, one of the greatest research tools that I have is I go to the SHOT Show every year, and you go to I'm media, so I go to media day at the range, and you can shoot. I don't know if you've ever been there before, but my goodness, cold and windy, and you shoot hundreds of rounds of other people's ammunition. It's great. But it is an opportunity to try new things and to see what the new stuff is out there. And if it's not for the good guys, then it could be for the bad guys, but I will tell you this, that nobody in my books, from none of the point of view characters, has ever used a weapon that I have not used.
That's good. You're speaking from experience, writing from experience. And yes, interesting that you mentioned the SHOT Show, because when your PR lady, Madeline, first reached out to me to say, hey, would you be interested in having John on your show? People in the entertainment industry, as we've kind of talked about several times, don't tend to really mesh well with what we do, and they do misrepresent us horribly a lot of times. And so, she had mentioned a little bit about your background, that you'd just been to the SHOT Show. And I'm like, okay, if she knows SHOT Show, then this is probably somebody that is on the same wavelength. And, just checking you out online and stuff, I could see that, yeah, you're the real deal. You know what you're talking about. So that was fantastic. Do you already have an idea for the next book, or are you kind of sitting back for a minute and taking a breath?
I am almost finished with the next book.
Oh my gosh.
So,
of course you are.
I finished the book that comes out in May 27th, Burn Bridges. I actually finished last July. So there's a production cycle. So the one I'm finishing now is actually a Jonathan Grave book, which will come out sometime in 26. So,
my goodness.
And then it will be time for another Irene Rivers book, which will be a follow-up to Burn Bridges.
I've never written anything. That is not my talent. And if I did, it would probably be something about myself, like autobiographical or something. So to keep coming up with fresh ideas, with multiple different lead characters, with completely different story lines and book series, is it something in the news that sparks you? Is it like, where do these ideas come from for you?
I actually, I don't know. It'll be some kind of it might be something in the news. It could be an image somewhere. In the case with Irene Rivers, it was these caves are actually, I have them on my property, and we actually have a number. I don't have them, but there are a number of Indian burial grounds that are around here. And I just thought, I mean, I don't. I was a firefighter for a long time, and going into dark places kind of creeps me out.
Mm-hmm.
And you see these caves, and you wonder what's down there. And the thought of sticking my hand down in there to see is just kind of, whatever lives there, I know I don't want to meet it, right? So it just got
or
me
doesn't live there.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And if the dog goes down there, I'm going to have to go get the dog out, right? So it occurred to me, hey, what happens? What a great way to start a story if you find a body, a dog goes and brings up a piece of shirt, and it turns out that it was part of a body, and then what? And then what? Okay, and then why would they do that? Ooh, cool. Well, okay, then what? So it's just you go in this great pretend. That's what I do.
That is so fun. It's just a surprise to you as well as
I don't
as
outline.
it's unfolding.
I don't outline. I just start playing.
I love it. Well, I'm so excited to have met you. Did you have a last question?
Well, when you write these books, I just kind of imagine that you are living that character. You are that character, right?
Yeah, actually, my wife teases me. There's a thin line between what I do and psychosis. So, I go and I become my imaginary friends, and then I play with my other imaginary friends. So I just write it down.
That's fantastic.
That's got to be super fun, and it puts you away from reality for a while.
It does, and especially when I'm on deadline, which is when I'm like really focused on things. Coming back out is not. I'm kind of always, I get a little fuzzy. It's like I have a hard time concentrating on stuff that is not part of the book when I'm really into the moment. It's odd. I think you should interview writers' spouses sometimes just to see just how strange an experience it can be.
That's fantastic. It's like when you've had a super vivid dream and then later in the day you're like, wait, did I do that or was that a dream? Well, you're like doing that during the daytime hours as you're writing books.
Or sometime on New Year's Day after New Year's Eve, you go, did I actually say?
Yeah, for sure. I know exactly what you're talking about right now. All right. Well, we do need to wrap up. This has been so fun, and I am super excited about Burned Bridges and looking at all of those books behind you. It looks like now, are these audio booked as well?
Audiobooks, ebooks, paper books, however, any form you want to have the book. I don't have any graphic novels yet, but
fantastic. We'll see. You never know. And audio booking really is my favorite way to consume because then I can be, running around my busy life and having it read.
And actually, the reader for the Irene Rivers books is outstanding.
Oh, I love that.
Really good.
That's one of my bucket list items. One day I want to read. I want to be the voice of an audiobook. So,
that'd be pretty cool.
I probably have to write it myself so that I can do that. So anyway, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing all of this with us. Tell folks one more time how they can follow everything that you do, website, social media, however they can reach out to you.
The best way to get me is johngilstrap.com, or you can get me at Gilstrap Author is on X, John Gilstrap Author on Facebook. But johngilstrap.com is probably the best way to get there.
Very good. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And you've already teased us that we're going to have you back on and learn about the next book. So
can't wait.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, John Gilstrap.
Bye-bye, John.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
How fun is that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that just sounds like I read mostly either historical fiction, right? Or nonfiction historical books. But that just really sounds fun to me, what he was talking about, just that whole like, but then what, right?
Yeah.
And here's this shirt. Well, who does it belong to? Is it a new shirt? Is it an old shirt? Like, what era was this person? Did they fall down this into this cave? Were they attacked by an animal? Was there a human? I mean, I'm so excited. I want.
All right, calm down, sir.
Okay. All right.
My reading is power bills, electric bill, invoices.
Well, there's plenty of that too. Well, this is the time of the show that we want to give credit to the people who support what we do. And you know that this family, this show, everything we do, we are trying to always support American jobs on American soil. Oops, that's upside down. And that we want to encourage our viewers and our listeners to support local, to support American. And nowadays, with all these tariffs going on, I think it's even more important to shop as locally as possible.
Well, you made a good point there. When you showed this, you showed it upside down. And this is the way the country's been the last 4 years. And so by buying America, we are slowly turning it back upright where it deserves and needs to be.
Wow, how clever are you? I like that. So, our good friends have created this product. It is called Locked In Grip. It is a liquid shooting sports chalk for better grip, especially as the temperatures are heating up around the nation. When you go out on the range, you definitely want a no slip, better traction, grip on your firearm for heightened connection. So for safer, faster shooting, go to lockedingrip.com. That is created by your neighbors here on American soil. Also, we never want to be involved in any kind of a self-defense encounter, but that is why we train, right? And why we carry is to be prepared in case something were to happen. And when and if that happens, you are going to end up involved in a legal situation. For our family to protect against that, we have attorneys on retainer. So if you go to attorneys on retainer, tell them that Dan and Cheryl sent you, put in the promo code that corresponds with Gun Freedom Radio, and be sure that you have an attorney on retainer that you can reach out to should you have an event, whether it's with a firearm, a knife, a rock, whatever it is. This is better than any insurance you have out there because this is the actual attorney who will be protecting
Wait,
you
so
in
like
courts.
if you use a gun to protect yourself, like in the movies, the cop says bye and leaves, and you go back in the house and sit down and watch TV. But in real
Not
life,
not how that
that's not how
happens.
it works. First out, you are a suspect from the second you call 911. Remember that. The second you call 911, you are a suspect.
Absolutely. We
No
should have
matter,
asked John about that.
yeah,
Like, how does he portray that in his books? When we have him back on, we will.
yeah.
But the easiest way to get to Attorneys on Retainer is just to go to our website, gunfreedomradio.com, the homepage, scroll down, click right through there, Attorneys on Retainer. Also, back to the idea of buying American. So you want to, you always go shop at these big box stores, right? But a lot of times they use our dollars to actually infringe on the things that we hold as valuable in our own lives, our rights, our nation's founding documents. These companies attack them in any way they can. Well, wouldn't it be nice to spend your money with an organization that is supporting American jobs on American soil, making American-made products, and that also supports this work that we're doing and all the advocacy, including the Second Amendment Foundation? Well, this is your chance to start shopping with an invitation only shopping network called patriothousehold.com/GFR. Whether it's your shampoo, your laundry soap, whatever it is, even the most delicious steaks and hamburger you will ever order. You order it online, it's delivered directly to your door. It couldn't be any more simple than that. And every dollar that you spend there supports the work that we do. patriothousehold.com/GFR for Gun Freedom Radio.
Best steak I have ever ate.
So true. They're
It
so
comes to our
delicious.
house.
Riverbend Ranch steaks. So this moment, we are going to announce something brand new,
You got me a new car?
I did not get you a new car, but we have a brand new affiliation
Oh.
with our show, with the work we're doing. It is patriotmobile.com/GFR. You will, I mean, right now, everybody's holding a cell phone in their hand. It's in their pocket. It's within arm's reach of them. Pardon me. So right now, the carrier that you are paying, probably like some of these big box stores, are working actually against your values. Well, patriotmobile.com uses the exact same towers, uses the exact same service, and so you are not going to lose anything, but only gain if you switch your service to Patriot Mobile. Now more than ever, it is important to support these kinds of companies and these organizations that share our values. Voting's important, right? To go out there and support your values, but it's not enough. We have to support these companies, these authors that support what we do. Patriot Mobile not only shares our belief, but they are doing something about it. They are an amazing organization. Please check them out. And when you go there, you will get 1 free month if you use the offer code GFR for Gun Freedom Radio. You're going to see me starting to do some social media spots and promotions and commercials. And one of the things I like to say is that, my selfies, everywhere I go, I'm taking selfies. They're going to be powered by patriotmobile.com/GFR.
Right. And just, it's so easy to switch. I didn't do it myself. I watched them do it, and it was super simple. And one of the things about Cheryl is, you'll notice if you've been with her as long as our 40-year anniversary we just had.
Yes, we did.
She does not like changes.
That's
And
true.
so, it was easy to do. We feel no difference in our service. We have a cheaper bill, and it's good. And again, we're working with companies that are standing for our rights.
Absolutely.
Which is extremely important.
Absolutely. Well, we want to thank our amazing guest today, John Gilstrap, and all of our awesome, listeners and viewers all over the planet. Not just here in Arizona, not in West Virginia where John is, not just in America, but all across the world, wherever there is internet service, we have people who are hungry for this information and the subject matter experts that we are blessed enough to bring on. And so thank you so much for spending your time with us. If you want to rewatch this video or any of our videos from the past 10 years, we've been doing this almost 10 years, please, you can go to the YouTube or Gunstreamer, Spotify, any of those platforms. And when you get there, please click the click the subscribe and the notifications buttons, because that not only gets you our latest episode faster, but it tells those platforms that this is valuable to you. And it gives us a hedge against that cancel culture that even now, with these huge cultural shifts that we're feeling back to a lot of the conservative and constitutional values across our nation, there is still an uphill climb for any organization or show or business that deals in or even has the name gun in the title, like Gun Freedom Radio. We really do get kind of quieted down. And so if we have more people that are clicking those notification and subscriber buttons, that will have a landslide effect and help these organizations, these social media companies know, no, there are people out here that want this information. Stop trying to block it. So please do that. If you want to listen to the audio only version while you're out for a long bike ride or a long drive or just doing yard work or whatever, then go to gunfreedomradio.com. Click the On Demand tab and
Binge listen to your heart's content, darling.
absolutely, he does that so beautifully.
Mhm.
And if you want to see photos and bios and links to maybe books like our guest today has, go to the guest tab. And there is an ever-growing list of resources there, subject matter experts. And when you spend time there, we don't hate that, right? All right, until next time, we are going to, Dan, we are going to
I know what we're going to do. I'm just
pray
thinking,
for our nation.
yes, we have to pray for the nation and pray, but you were going to say pray for our leaders. You wanted me to say
And
that.
pray for our leaders.
Our representatives.
Sure, but there are people who are leaders in communities, leaders in families, right?
Yeah.
Not just elected officials. So pray for our
Yeah,
leaders.
pray for our leaders.
Thank you. How about the ones you don't like, though?
I have to go.
Maybe pray especially for them.
Pray what?
Pray that they will live out their leadership
The way they're doing it?
based on our constitutional values and principles.
That's too late.
Why?
Because they're not doing our Constitution.
Look
They're
how
not.
many people have started to switch parties.
Yes, that is
right?
that is an interesting topic right there because there has been some changes over.
So
People
people
are
can grow and change, right?
some.
And when we pray, we help facilitate that.
Okay, there's some that I don't know if there's any way you could. There
Only God knows.
they're
Just
from-
pray for
yeah.
them, babe.
All right, I'll
Just pray for
I'm
them.
I'm praying for them right now.
All right.
Okay.
Until next time.
Baby Jesus.
Be, are you going to pray right now?
You said to.
Be good to each other. Have a great week and God bless.
Bye bye.